Today I'm going to be dealing with square and square root of numbers. For example, let me start with this. Here I've been told to find the square of a number. For example, if I have 1, let me start with 1. But 1, the square of 1, you square this and say this is 1 times 1, giving us a 1. So this is the square of 1. And if I have 2, it would be squared, and this would be 2 times 2 equaling to 4. And so this is the square of 2. If I have 3 squared, this would be 3 times 3, giving me a 9. And therefore, this is the square of 3. If I have 4 squared, would be equals to 4 times 4, giving me 16. And then this is the square of 4. If I have 5 squared, this would be 5 times 5, giving me 25. And this is the square of 5. So this is how we determine squares of numbers. A square root of a number is shown by, this is the symbol for square root of a number, that a square root of a number. And for other kinds of roots, for example, for cube root, it would be this, and for the fourth root would be this. But for square root is this, and therefore I'm going to be mostly dealing with this kind. And therefore, let's work out the square root of numbers. So out of that example, I'm going to have, if I've been told to determine the square root of 4, for example, square root of 4. But a square root of any number is either positive or negative, and therefore we are going to have it as a positive or negative. And therefore, what we are going to come here, we are going to say 4. Now divide this by 2, I'm going to get 2. By 2, I'm going to get 1. And therefore, the square root of 4, which will be positive or minus, will be equals to 2 times 2 under root positive or minus. And therefore, this would be equals to positive or minus 2 squared, but here we have 1 out of 2, because this sign of a root up here means 1 out of 2. Therefore, I'll have positive or minus 2 to the power 2 times 1 out of 2. And therefore, this would be equals to positive or minus 2 to the power 1. And therefore, the root of 4 would be equals to positive or minus 2. And therefore, this would be it. Now, for it being positive or minus, if I have a positive 2 times a positive 2 would be equals to 4 still, and negative 2 times negative 2, this would be 4 still. So if I out of that brings out the same thing. Now let's try another example. Now let's determine the square root of 9. If I have the square root of 9, which will be positive or minus root of 9, this should be equals to, now let me first get 9 here, 9. Now the prime factor that's very low that can divide 9 is 3. So by 3, I'll have 3. By 3, 1. So I'm going to have 3 times 3 under, so it's positive or minus. So this would be equals to positive or minus root of 3 squared. And therefore, this would be equals to positive or minus 3 squared 1 out of 2. And therefore, this would be positive or minus, this goes with this would be 3. And therefore, this is the square root of 9. Now let's try for 16. the square root of 16, which would be positive or minus root of 16. Therefore, I'm going to come here and say that I'm going to have 16. So by 2, this is going to be 8. By 2, 4. By 2, 2. By 2, 1. And therefore, I'm going to have this equals to positive or minus root of 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Therefore, this would be equals to positive minus root of 2 power 4. And therefore, this would be equals to positive or minus root of let me remove this. This is going to be 2 power 4, but I'm having the half outside. And therefore, this would be equals to positive or minus 2 to the power 4 times 1 out of 2. And therefore, this would be equals to positive or minus 2 to the power 2, because this is 1, this is 2. Therefore, this would be positive or minus 4 in this case, because this would be equals to 2 times 2, giving me a 4. Now, let's try for 36. Now, the root of 36 would be equals to, now let's have 36 here. By 2, I would get 18. By 2, I would get 9. By 3, I would get 3. And by 3, get 1. Therefore, I'm going to come here and say that I'll have here 2 times 2 times 3 times 3, positive or minus. Therefore, this would be equals to, I'd have here 2 squared times 3 squared, and therefore this would be equals to, now positive or minus, and therefore I'm going to have something here that's going to be 2 squared times 3 squared, but here I'm having 1 out of 2. Now this power affects whatever that's inside, therefore I'm going to have 2 times 1 out of 2 times 3 power 2 times 1 out of 2. So the whole of this is going to be positive or minus. So we are going to have here something that's going to be equals to, I'm going to have positive or minus into, this is going to be 2 to the power 1 times 3 to the power 1, and therefore this would be equals to positive or minus into 2 times 3, and this would be positive or minus 6 in this case, and therefore this is the square root of 36. Now let's try one more example. Now let's try the square root of 64. That if I want to get the root of 64, so 64, if I can, so for 64 by 2, I now get, this is 32, by 2 16, by 2 8, by 2 4, by 2 2, by 2, I'd get here 1, and therefore root of 64 would be equals to root positive or minus, I'll have 1 2 3 4 5 6, therefore 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 1 2 3 6, yeah, and therefore this would be positive or minus root of 2 to the power 6, and therefore this would be positive or minus. I'm going to have here going to positive or minus. This is going to be 2 to the power 6, 1 out of 2. Therefore, this would be equals to 2 to the power 6 times 1 out of 2. Therefore, this would be 2 to the power 3. But this is positive minus, positive minus. Therefore, this would give us be equals to, I'll have positive or minus 2 times 2 times 2. Therefore, this would be equals to, I'm going to have positive or minus 8. Therefore, this is the square root of 64. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to comment. I always share. See you next time.